Welcome everybody to Somewhere in Vegas here on our new home, Spreaker.com. I'm Mark with the Q. I'm your host. I'm very privileged to have two talented filmmakers. In this time of crisis, it'd be nice to, look back to a more simpler time, the 90s, where being grungy wasn't an everyday occurrence, just a fashion style. We got two very talented filmmakers, Jeff Barel and Jeff Auer here, talking about their new film, The Incoherents, which is right now available on demand. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us. How you doing? Good. And that's Jared Barel, our director.
Jared. Okay, right. Gotcha. Jared. Anyway.
I'd be honest with you.
Now, guys. I mean, this has been this isn't kind of interesting just because we got bi-coastal here. We got somebody that's out in L.A. and somebody currently right out in New York right now. So, I was talking to a couple actors last week about how L.A. was. Obviously, the smog has come up, and everybody's kind of, waiting on what's been going on in terms of the Hollywood business. But how has it been out in New York? I mean, we've been hearing a lot of stuff out in New York in terms of, of where the pandemic is. It's one of the most hardest hit. Tell me a little bit about how New York is right now.
I live in a neighborhood that's not super densely populated. There's a lot of houses over here. I live in an apartment building, so around here it's not so bad. We're able to social distance pretty easily, and everybody's adhering to those rules. But within, I would say a mile or two of here, some of these hospitals are completely overrun with people. I shot a film on the last day that New York wasn't shut down, which I believe was like Sunday, March 15th. And even that day, the streets of Manhattan were completely empty on a beautiful Sunday afternoon where it normally be packed. I was in downtown in the Village, and it's just been everybody's just stuck in their apartments, watching the news, scared as hell about what's going on, watching the incredible work our healthcare workers and our first responders are doing. Some of you may have heard at 7 p.m. every night, we all go outside on our windows. We have a terrace. We stand out on our terrace and we clap for our healthcare workers. And I think it actually helps give the city and the neighborhood some sense of connection because we're all just desperate to have some sort of human contact besides the people in our apartment, our families. But, from what I understand from Governor Cuomo, things we may have seen the worst. But just the work that the healthcare workers are doing is just unbelievable, putting their lives on the line for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to hear that. I think we hear so much doom and gloom pretty much from a lot of the stuff that we've been hearing through the news. So it's nice to have a little bit of an update and, kind of having a little bit more of a silver lining to what's been going on over there. So it's great that you're staying a little bit safe and everything's kind of going relatively well in light of the circumstances right now. Like I said, this movie was very interesting in just the fact that we're kind of harping back to the 90s where there was a kind of a change and a shift in terms of music. And Jeff, tell me a little bit about what kind of came about, how the script kind of came about, and kind of, your ideas when you were starting to write the script.
This was loosely based on an experience I had with some friends of mine from college back in the early 2000s. We had known each other for about 15 years, and we randomly decided to start a band, even though only one dude could actually play. A couple of guys learned bass and guitar. I sang because I couldn't do anything else. And we started that in Minneapolis, and then we started randomly recording songs that my friend Tim first wrote, and then we started writing songs over email, and then we recorded them in Chicago and New York and Boston, and we made this whole album for themselves. Nothing actually happened with it, but we had a great time, and it was a great creative outlet for us. And then a friend of mine suggested I write a screenplay about it, and that was a very long time ago now, and there's been many iterations of the script since, but that was basically the start of it, and it's morphed into something basically completely different, but that was the genesis of it.
Yeah, when you were presented with this project, I mean, obviously that you were kind of involved since the beginning. What was your thoughts?
Well, we before we even got involved in doing like the feature film, we did a short film. Alice Emanuel, who's one of the producers and stars as Jimmy and wrote music and stuff as well, had hit me up. He'd been in a ton of my projects. In fact, I'm recutting my reel basically as we speak, and I realized that my reel should say, Jared Barel show reel starring Alice Emanuel, because it's just shot with him for 2 minutes. But we did a short film for the Incoherents back in, what was that, 2012? Yeah.
2012, yeah.
Yeah, it's so long ago. And I really loved how this little short came out. No budget, nothing. But it was just a fun, great scene, and the four guys together were just there was just so much charisma in the room. I said, I hit up Jeff, I said, I need to read this script. And I read it, and it's, as a musician myself, and having played in bands in the 90s and 2000s, and having gotten to an age where I was definitely feeling, and feel even more so now, like, why is there an age limit to this? Why can't I keep playing? Why can't we keep making music? And why is this industry the way it is? For me, when I read this script, it pulled at so many heartstrings for me personally, and there were so many moments in it that if I hadn't experienced as a kid playing music and growing up, I was starting to experience it as an adult, feeling nostalgic for those moments. That I got to the end of the script and I said I have to make this, and I called Jeff and I said, yeah, I'm making this movie. So, yeah.
Why was it? Why the '90s in particular did you guys kind of go for?
Well, that's just from basically that was mine and Alex's era, and though I'm completely stating in the movie, Alex is an actual musician, just like Jared. They both came up in bands, albeit in different eras. So when I was in the audience in New York in the early 90s and the mid-90s at these shows, Alex was on stage with bands. So we came at it from two different perspectives. And there's this period there where it's maybe the last period of rock, just from, late 80s and then going into Nirvana and that explosion. And that's what Alex and I came out of. So that's the music that we, in our 20s, that, this sort of indie rock, which was kind of a niche music, but at the time we thought it was the greatest thing ever. The scene eventually died, but that's where the music, that we focused on kind of came from, because we wanted that band, and especially Alex brought this into the movie, where we wanted that band to come out of this era from the early mid-90s. And, there's still a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, because there's, like I said, it's more of a niche scene than anything, but there's still a dedicated group of fans that still like this music. And so that's where the focus of that era came from. I think beyond that, too, I mean, that 90s era, I mean, I'm a bit younger than Jeff and Alex, but so my 90s experience was sort of like in the mid to late 90s, sort of like post-Nirvana stuff. But that, to me, also seemed like that was sort of rock and roll's last great hurrah. I mean, as of now, I don't think we've seen anything that's so, at the head of the zeitgeist so much that we've seen since then. So that idea of 3, 4, 5, people up on stage with guitars and bass and drums and stuff, the climate of music has changed so much that, that was sort of, I don't know, rock and roll's last heyday. I hope it comes back. I hope maybe we can have some influence on that. But I think it's sort of for us to do like a sort of a nostalgic type piece, it almost seems like a no-brainer that was sort of the era that, it also, I mean, even just the age differences within the group of people making this film, I think a lot of us all connected on that similar level. There was always some band that we were all like, oh, yeah, no, but we all love that band kind of thing. And I think hopefully that would be something that the audience connects with as well.
Now, I believe you guys shot this in New York, correct?
New York and New Jersey.
New Jersey. What was it like kind of filming out there in the New Jersey area, and kind of using that as a kind of a backdrop?
Well, the dichotomy of the movie is that this guy is trying to live this old rock and roll lifestyle, but yet he's just a suburban dad, kind of stuck in a regular 9-to-5 job. So New Jersey was an awesome backdrop for us because it's very suburban, and Jared and Jordan are from Wayne, so we had some connections to shoot up there, and we had some other connections in Princeton. And Jared got us the ability to shoot at the very famous Maxwell's Club in Hoboken, where so many bands from the 80s sort of in the indie scene played. So that was a great get for us. Jared, you want to keep going?
Yeah, I just that's. I'm in LA now, but I actually only moved out here a couple months, ironically, before we started shooting the Incoherents. So I'm from New Jersey originally, and there was a big rock and punk scene that was happening in the '90s in New Jersey too. So to me, it almost seemed like a no-brainer between the city and New Jersey. In part, I think it thankfully worked really well story-wise, and the other part, as when you're dealing with an independent film. You got to use what you have and what you have access to, and thankfully we had a great community built in that was more than willing to come together and help us make this thing, and whether it was with locations or extras or whatever it was. So I think both New York and New Jersey were they were just integral into making this thing happen at all. So.
And so many people in New Jersey just wanted to help. The amount the amount, like Jared said, that the community gave to us was incredible, because we shot this thing on a shoestring. So anything you get for free, any location I would get for free, people were so willing to lend a hand to us, and we couldn't have made the film without them.
Now, Jared, you come from you've done comics and graphic novels before, and
right.
That's very interesting in terms of. I don't think a lot of people kind of know this, but a lot of filmmakers do storyboards where they kind of plot out their shots and plot out what what the look of the film's going to be. Tell me a little bit about that, just how useful that is to be able to come from that background.
Sure. Well, what's interesting in a comic book sense, and especially the way that I do my comics, my stuff is I call it live action graphic novels. I basically sort of shoot every panel in the book as if it were like a film shoot. So I have like real actors and stuff, whether it's on green screen. Sometimes we used to do locations and things. So you are actually, in a sense, having the actors and things perform out, the story. And what's interesting is in a comic book space, whether you do it that style or traditional drawing or whatever, you only have a certain amount of panels to tell a story. So only a certain amount of images. And after years of doing it, you can start to minimize how many images you need to be able to tell a story or have a scene come across or whatever it is. So when you're dealing with a film where, we shot in 21 days, which is a lot. I mean, I think there was one day where we shot like 9 pages. When you have to move that quickly and there's not a lot of room for error, for me, I found that, and it was kind of surprising to me. I didn't really think that going into it, but what I got out of the comic use was being able to minimize exactly how many images I needed, how many different angles and shots and setups we needed to be able to bring that story to life, to be able to tell each scene and give the audience everything that they needed visually to understand what was happening, and not just understand, but to make it enjoyable and visually interesting. So, when you're doing any kind of storytelling that's visual, whether it's comics to films or films to comics or whatever it is, and I'm sure there's, whatever other genres I'm missing, they all sort of play hand in hand, and the better you can get at telling a story, the better you're going to be able to tell a story no matter what the medium is.
And for you, Jeff, I mean, you helped co-write a lot of music for this movie as well. I mean, were there some songs that you kind of had in your back pocket? Were there some songs that you kind of had to brainstorm to figure out? I mean, tell me a little bit about that process.
Well, it was a two-pronged process. Basically, Alex and I wrote a bunch of original songs that the Incoherents were going to play in the film. I would write lyrics. I have a couple of kids. I'd be on the playground watching my kids, typing lyrics in my phone, text them to Alex. He'd record a demo. I'd go over his apartment. We'd drink a couple of beers, record the demo, talk about how